Welcome and thank you for joining us in the session Medical Devices, Quality and Safety Regulation. How is the patient's voice heard in the region? Moderated by Prabir Das, Chairman Director at Teramu Asia Holdings and Managing Board Member at APAC Med.
Hello and welcome. I just wanted to do a quick sound check. Give me a thumbs up if you all can hear me all right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the session. Important one. I'm very grateful for the organization to have organized this and choosing me for whatever reason to moderate the session. But, we have very eminent, prolific, eloquent speakers. The idea would be to hear them more than me setting the context. But I'd just set a brief context. Sorry?
Probably just could you hold on 1 second? We think we've...
Sure.
Just hold on 1 second. Will?
Hold on 2 seconds. We're just checking it out.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Do you want me to start from the beginning when I start?
Yes, yeah, you will have to, yeah. But
yeah, that might be necessary.
It's a first one, it's a glitch. I think we just had a glitch on that.
No problem.
It's fortunate it's after a mobility break, so it's we just kind of.
Yeah, but that's okay. That happens in any setting. Would you play the voiceover introduction again?
Yes, we'll do that in a minute. So I'll keep you informed on that.
Yeah, no problem.
Backlog on that.
Sarika, you're a corporate lawyer?
That's right. Of course, I have diversified over the last few years. I now head my own practice in Mumbai. It's called Koya Consultants. We are a pan-India firm. And we are involved in diversity and inclusion in organizations.
How nice. How nice.
Primarily sexual harassment, but I'm largely pushing the disability piece. So when we're doing workplace policies, we talk to MNCs. So while parallelly on this side, through the T1D Foundation of India, I am campaigning with the regulator. I'm also trying to parallelly, talk to my clients and introduce the concept of how T1D can be added to the list of disabilities, just so that reasonable accommodation can be made in the workplace.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We should maybe continue to speak. Both Gaurav, me, we do work around diabetes.
Oh wow, that'll be lovely.
Small world, isn't it?
It is.
I was just, You know, that was a very polite way of checking. If you are a litigator, then I would be very careful.
We have litigators in our practice. You still have to be careful.
No, you'll be amazed. Most litigators will tell you not to go to litigation. I'll tell
That
you
is
that.
true. That is true.
You know, they're the ones who will the most.
No, that mine was a very light-hearted comment.
Not joining you.
I'm not doing anything wrong to be scared of litigation any which way.
Absolutely. It's just the lawyer joke.
Yeah, that's right. You think I've been married 24 years. I'm not worried of litigators. You know, if you have a wife at home, you never worry about litigators.
Now that you should be worried about, wife jokes. I work in anti-sexual harassment. You'd say something else and I'd still be like, all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will, you're listening? Will?
Sorry.
Production, could you just check the links again? There's an overlap. Yes, they're looking at that. Yeah. Gary, could you just check the links? Yeah. Thank you.
Kawaldeep, you would want us to finish on the original time, right?
No, we'll linger on. I think what we'll do is we'll keep.
So original finish was at 1:30 p.m. India time. We are
Yes,
starting about 10. We are already 10 minutes behind. So just give me an indication. If you want, either which way we can manage it, I think.
Okay, we'll do that.
Just to make you aware, attendees are joining now.
Okay, and also could you check the links? Yeah, are we going live? Okay, thank you. We have, yeah. Okay, can we start?
And what time do you want us to finish?
Yes, are we live now? Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Okay, give me 5. Could you rerun it? Oh.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll run it from the top.
Okay, ready from the top. Thank you. Sorry, Prabhu, we're back to the original. Yeah.
No problem. No problem.
Welcome and thank you for joining us in the session Medical Devices, Quality and Safety Regulation. How is the patient's voice heard in the region? Moderated by Probir Das, Chairman Director at Teramu Asia Holdings and Managing Board Member at APAC Med.
Thanks for that introduction. Welcome everyone to our session. I'm very grateful for the organization to have arranged this and choosing me for whatever reason to moderate the session. I will quickly introduce my speakers. We have very eminent speakers on this panel. We have Dr. Jitendra Sharma, who has perhaps not been able to join yet, but we are hoping will be able to join in the course of the session. Dr. Sharma is a dear friend of mine for a long time, Executive Director of Kalam Institute of Health Technology. We have Gaurav Verma, like a brother. He is the Director of Regulatory and Government Affairs for Becton Dickinson, India. And we have Saireka Suresh Kumar, who is a type 1 diabetes survivor and also from the Type 1 Diabetes Foundation. They're very eminent in their own areas of work. And given our short time, I'll not elaborate on them anymore and dive straight into the discussions of today. We all know that good healthcare resides somewhere in the confluence of 6 important stakeholders. I think we have the policymakers, we have the payer, we have the provider, we have the patient, we have the physician, and we have the playmaker, right? So, so many. But in my 30 years of being in the medical devices industry, while I have seen increasing participation of the policymaker and the payer on how healthcare is designed or delivered, unfortunately, I have not seen as much participation from the playmakers and the patients. That is increasing, and towards that, I think this Congress itself is a great step forward. In several organized settings, now I'm not an expert, but in several organized settings, I understand, such in Europe, there is a designed framework on how, European Commission structures or suggests patient involvement in medical research and development. This, I suppose, is getting extended to medical devices as well. As I understand, the structure of European Union suggests that the patients be involved right from setting the research priorities to fundraising activities, protocol development, steering of trials, ethical reviews, data safety, health technology assessment, pre and post marketing regulatory pathways, so on and so forth. Yeah. In India, I'm not sure if the design is that organized yet, and I would request my speakers later to articulate what their thoughts would be to make it stronger. Point number 1. Point number 2, again, I'm a one-trick monkey. I've only done medical devices all my career, and I know that there is no, but by its inherent nature, medical devices involve risk. There is not a single medical device that's devoid of all risks. So therefore, bringing in patient awareness and their participation in, propagating adoption, so on and so forth, their experience, onboarding their experience and propagating it forward is something very important, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I have noticed a large trust deficit between these bunch of stakeholders, more so between others and the patients, and there are good reasons for it. We need to all work together to bridge the gap. And I'm not being critical, but in the recent past, I've also seen, quite frankly, that's a dangerous trend, very ignorant activism in the name of patient safety. So that's something that we need to also perhaps stay away, because it's science at the end of the day. It's science more than anything else. And therefore, there has to be informed decisions which are based on data and transparency. In today's time, especially in the pandemic environment, I see, and I'm very happy to see, a greater appreciation amongst general public for both science of medicine and the industry of medical devices. That's great news. But as it is true, it is also very incumbent upon us to be more transparent and forthright with information, because in the increasing digital world, I see many cybersecurity type risks or data safety type risks that we need to really cover for. So our speakers will present for about roughly 10 minutes each, and then we will have enough time for Q&A. And I hope we do get some very good questions. It's not so often that we all get these speakers to ask questions from or to have this interaction. And then towards the end, I'll come back with some notes from the sessions to wrap the session up, if you may all allow me to do that. And with that, I would perhaps first go to maybe Gaurav. I don't think Dr. Sharma has joined yet. So Gaurav, let me just take a 1 quick second check. Has Dr. Sharma joined?
Not yet. So
Not
could
yet.
you go to
Okay.
Gaurav's stage?
Fair enough. So we would go ahead with Gaurav then. Gaurav,
Thanks,
over to
Prabir.
you for your perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Prabir. Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes,
And,
yes, very clear.
Even before I start, let me thank the organizer for bringing in industry perspective from regulations point of view into the scheme of things. I'll start with a very fundamental question: is what is patient safety? From patient safety in today's context, in discussion of today's context, is nothing but freedom for a patient from unnecessary harm associated with healthcare. An adverse event I'm referring here are the ones which could have been easily avoided through safe clinical practices, robust systems and processes, and incorporating knowledge from the previous events. These adverse events, as I'm discussing, have their own burden on the healthcare infrastructure. And if you see closely, all these examples I'm sharing are from the countries and the regions that have developed healthcare systems. And what I can tell you is data from most of the developing and underdeveloped regions either go undetected or go unreported. Hence, the need of the hour is to have a robust feedback mechanism, which is transparent, free-flowing, and free from the fear of consequences. And we should also include all stakeholders which are part of it, namely industry, healthcare providers, payers, regulators, and as Prabir said, above all, the patients. As we all know, the patients are involved either directly or indirectly in every stage of product development, right from the concept to the commercialization. And patient engagement, rather increasing patient engagement can provide many benefits in the product development cycle. Two of which come to top of my mind is it can easily increase the efficiency of clinical investigations, hence the ensure quality outcomes. Plus, it can directly address to any patient need which might be there. Apart from product development, patients and patient groups have a key role in delivery of the healthcare. Patient groups can be a great feedback mechanism as they will know more about the progression of the symptoms and the treatment experience as compared to anybody else. Plus, there is always a self-interest of a good outcome. One guaranteed contribution which a patient or a patient group can provide is time, as they are first in the link of the experience and they can provide a timely feedback to all the relevant stakeholders. Last but not the least, patient group can provide a collective voice to demand early access to technology and at the right value. Coming to medical technology plays a very critical role in providing solutions to enhance the patient safety by automating the processes, facilitating information sharing, improving diagnostic accuracy, and standardizing the practices. And what I can tell you at this point of time, many researchers are working day and night to bring more such solutions to the market, which leads us to the perennial dilemma, which was beautifully worded by a regulator. How fast is fast enough and how safe is safe enough? A good regulatory system is nothing but a fine balance between these two asks. A good regulation has not only to ensure that a safe product reaches the patient, but also it has to ensure that no patient is devoid from the latest advances in the medical technology. Plus, it should also have a good feedback mechanism to ensure that every voice is being heard, and every voice is being heard without any, what I would say, any voices and it's heard judiciously. And what we have seen of late, needle has been moved in Taiwan and Australia, wherein they have started included patients in the health technology assessment. Even Taiwan has also invited patients as observers in the reimbursement meetings, which is a step in the right direction. But in this regard, we have still a long way to go in regions, specifically in India and APAC. And what the need of the hour is, as I've said earlier, that we need involvement of all the stakeholders in ensuring the quality outcome which every patient deserves in the region. And with this, I'll end my presentation. Thank you, Prabir. Thanks for the time, and thanks for giving me opportunity to sharing my views.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Gaurav. I think you ended at a, that question, how safe is safe enough, how fast is fast enough. Quite frankly speaking, brings out the need to bring in the patient in that conversation, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, like I say, medical technology is not about technology, it's about trust. It's not a technology business, it's a trust business. We may have all the technology in the world, but at the end of the day, what matters is how that technology applies to the patient. Okay, so we will shift gears now, and we will now move to Saireka. And Saireka, you have not only been a patient, you advocate patients' rights, but also I'm assuming that you have this constant interactions with several others of these stakeholder groups, right? And we are very keen to hear from that perspective, Saireka.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Das. And thank you, Mr. Verma. I must say that some very, very effective points there. How safe is safe enough is definitely the existential statement for the patient, when we're talking about medical devices. I'm going to just take a moment and try and share my PPT. I have a speaking aid.
Yeah, sure.
All right, is my screen visible, please?
Perfect.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is the outline, and the large subjects that we often think about when we think about medical tech is really accuracy, accessibility, affordability, and accountability. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about those. But quickly, to give you a brief outline of who I am and where I come from, apart from what I do professionally, I have lived with type 1 diabetes for 25 years. And when they say survivor, I definitely think it rings, because I was diagnosed in 1995, and those were the dark ages, so to speak, of SMBG and those plastic syringe sets, and we were married to a refrigerator before we even knew what marriage was. And that was that entire generation of mixed start and lack of designer insulins. So sometime in 2014, which is the year I got married, was my first complication. I had proliferative diabetic retinopathy in both eyes, and I had a double vitrectomy. So, I mean, it was quite a year to say the least, but what made me see the light was me embracing medical technology. I switched to a pump, I got onto a CGM, and from what would have been an 8.9 or a 10.2 A1C, for the last 6 years, my A1Cs have been 6.5 or lower. And my eyes are back, I drive, I travel prolifically, I work around the clock. And all of this is possible because of medical technology. And I'm an evangelist. But that said, the learning curve and the curve to embrace it has been a rough road. Now, with my interaction with various patient groups, so I started Club 1 Diabetes with KEM because I wanted to help more people like me. I wanted people to embrace technology. I wanted people to be open, that they could live a full life and not be bowed down by diabetes. So we have access to a lot of data that's coming in. There are various medical medtech pieces that people use, like the CGM, the pump sets, or even your quick sets in the pen and whatnot. And there are various points of accuracy. So a classic example is the CGM, which is now being widely accepted. Now I'm going to quickly show you these screenshots if you're seeing my screen, and these are from various patients, and we see this very, very frequently. Now, if you see, I don't know if any of you are familiar with reading, blood glucose values, but the concept of diabetes management is there is a range, which is this little gray band in between, where if you keep your blood sugars between, let's say, 75 and 140, your HbA1c will be 7.7 or lower. So that is the thought process, and that is what is every person with T1D's daily mission statement. Typical sensor readings oftentimes look like this, and a person is truly alarmed at the kind of, I cannot tell you how freaky it is to see something like this. Like sugar goes all the way up to 300, 400, comes down to 70, goes back to 300, the kind of roller coasters. And this started happening a lot over the few years. So we were initially wondering, are people not applying their devices correctly? Then there would be this whole SOS protocol activated, check your sugar in the glucometer, what is going on? We started finding a few patterns, two things, and they were both related to accuracy. Per se, the devices were not 100% accurate. So they would have roller coaster sugars, in which case, once the company was approached, they would say, if you are within the 7-day window, we will replace your device. Otherwise, I'm sorry, just get a new device. The other instance that we noticed came in a more thinly veiled thing called a disclaimer. Every medical device like this, CGM, irrespective of the brand or the company, says that always cross-verify your readings with a glucometer. Do not take dosing decisions without checking with the glucometer. And there might be a variation between your finger prick glucose levels and your interstitial glucose levels, which is what your CGM is doing. Now, it's very interesting to see the spectrum of variations. The variations range between 20 mgdl, which is literally nothing, 0 to 20 mgdl, right? And 100 mgl in certain patients, which is your classic case of the left-hand side. Now, what happens in real life when a person has a 50 or a 60 mgdl variation in reading? It affects your dosing decisions. So effectively, and people have different insulin sensitivities. People may have, 1 unit of insulin might bring down only 20 or 30 mgdl. Sometimes 1 unit of insulin can bring down 50 mgdl. Such a patient goes violently into hypoglycemia, and there is a dangerous trend of wrong dosing, because of which a lot of people in diabetes communities have started trusting sensors lesser and lesser. Now, unfortunately, what happens is the point of contact for everyone who uses a medical device is the sales team. Sales teams are fantastic in terms of how they manage the customer's expectation, but they are bound by company policy. So if they say, okay, under 7 days, I'll replace your device, but they have no further answers to a person. Now, moving away from CGM, even if you look at the quality of accessories that come. So this is the picture to the right is a picture of a classic infusion set. Now, this is a cannula through which your pump is connected to your body. Now, irrespective of the company, when I've found in diabetes communities, and I found this from my own personal experience, that if you take large doses of insulin, which is over 12 or 15 units at a certain time, the design is so flawed that some of the insulin gets pushed back because of the pressure. And that has nothing to do with, application or style or site or, adiposity. It just happens that it is a design flaw. Now, oftentimes, again, something like this is very difficult to communicate if, your company is not listening. Because effectively what happens is then your dosing gets incorrect. You need way more insulin to correct a wrong dosing. And then you end up having things like weight gain, hyperinsulinemia. So one of the most common things I find in patient groups is when people discuss, I put on a lot of weight since I got onto the pump. Ye kaise ho gaya? My TDDs have increased. Ye kaise ho gaya? So these are things that, we find. And even in your pen sets or click pens or flex pens, again, I've seen this in personal experience and I hear this in groups where people say that the delivery mechanism is so strange. There's a little spring attached to the clicker. So when I take my dose and I press the spring, I'm not sure how long I need to wait before the entire dose gets delivered. So sometimes what happens is if I wait for 10 seconds and I take it out, the dose is still delivering. Should I keep it on for 15 seconds? Should I keep it on for a minute? Who answers these questions? There is no standardization between, pen to pen in terms of how to use it. And this information is not available in the public domain. Patients are not trained in how to use medtech, and that is what is the large concern. Now, the next concern, of course, while using, and while it's got lesser and lesser to do with safety, is just this is just something that comes in the way of acceptance of medtech, is the affordability. I mean, here is a device with so many problems, and it's so prohibitively expensive. The cheapest FGM device in India costs about 2,000 rupees to use for 14 days. Any other company moving forward is only a markup from there. Like the next price span point is 3,200 rupees for a 7-day CGM.
Mm.
And the next price point is anywhere over 5,000 to 8,000 if we're talking about a Dexcom.
Mm.
So we're talking about designer insulins. Tresiba is hands down the most beautiful insulin, in terms of a basal long term. But a vial of Tresiba is 2,000 rupees, give or take. So we're talking about anything which comes, as an advancement. There's definitely a prohibitive price tag. This is unaffordable to the average middle class consumer. So the biggest question that you ask in patient groups is, discount kahan pe milta hai? Are there schemes going on for this kind of thing? Is one MG giving me a better deal? Who is giving 20% discount? There is so much of stress because people want to embrace this, but it is not affordable. Lower income groups, they literally wait for all these charity programs done by the government and the hospital to be handed out, things like this. Otherwise, they don't even think that they can afford it. They say, oh, this is 1 month's grocery.
Yeah, yeah.
That comes to accessibility. Now, the biggest challenge in accessibility is twofold. The first challenge is what I mentioned even during accuracy, understanding technology. You have to understand that a lot of these devices are esoteric. They come with people who have a tech bent of mind that I find even in these diabetes groups, patient groups that we work with, boys and girls who are engineers, they just grab it like this because they're used to seeing graphs every day of their lives. Whereas the average person staring at a CGM graph just says, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
They just put on a device and they told me to go on. Like, how do I interpret something like this? What are the parameters? How do I know from looking at this whether my insulin is working, my device is working, what is not working? So 50% of the people fall off the grid simply because they have something that they don't understand. The most common question from pump users is, I've worn the pump, isn't it the same as my pancreas? Why are my sugars still not controlled? So the kind of understanding gap, that just because a person simpliciter owns a piece of technology does not mean, that it solves the problem. So you're basically having a huge gap here. It doesn't meet the purpose if your end consumer, your patient, does not understand the technology and therefore understand the limitations of the technology.
Yeah.
And of course, that is one of the largest things that have a domino effect on safety. When you don't understand, so this is the patient piece of it. When they don't understand a piece of technology, it's obviously unsafe because you've given a monkey a gun.
Yeah.
And of course, the other piece of accessibility is your distribution channels. A lot of medtech is regulated. So therefore, I understand that distribution channels are exclusive to keep accountability of your devices. However, what happens is that while people living in metro cities can easily access all kinds of technologies, like all these years in Bombay and Pune, I have never had a problem accessing any piece of diabetes technology. But the second I travel to Goa, I struggle. When I travel to Shimla, I struggle. So these days, of course, the diabetes community is shrinking because of the internet, and everybody is watching influencers and people want to try things on. But there is a huge, the last mile connectivity gap between the technology and the consumer. So that's definitely something that people, could pay more attention to and try and bridge the gap. Commonest answers we get are economics. Demand nahi hai, to supply kyun kare? But if your rollout for medical technology is sales driven, then it takes away the element of what you really set out to do for diabetes.
True.
And so I think that just sums up everything that I've said to accountability. So see, right now with a weak regulator, the standard Indian is not litigious because you don't have very much to litigate on. While I don't know if it's a boon or a bane on either set, what effectively happens is that you have a blank patient voice. Like people who are really listening like you do not know what are the concerns of a patient. So I think the need of the hour is really to reach out to more and more patient voices, because people who want to do something are not connected with the people who need something in the true sense of the word. Also, companies could consider working on a preventive strategy rather than a cure. For example, give us a better product than actually replacing it 7 days from the time it went wrong, right? Or find your models that are more accurate and launch them in a limited market. I understand that all these products are ISO certified and whatnot, but then again, if that were true, why are these problems existing? So maybe look into design flaws, maybe look into whatever, work on a preventive strategy rather than a cure in this case, and patient feedback to be implemented with greater transparency. Right now, patient feedback exists on a hotline. When you call people and say, this is a problem, this is the problem, they say, oh, call 1800, blah, 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 and tell them there is a robotic customer care executive who takes down your concerns, and that's the last you heard of it. And that is agnostic to what medtech company you're dealing with. Now, from when you're looking at it from a top-down approach, that makes perfect sense from the logistics part of it. But if you're looking at it from a bottom-up approach, then your patient voice is drowned. And then, of course, price control. So on that happy note, those are the concerns that I would like to share.
Thank you. Really, thanks. I could, I could sense the passion, which is very important. Takeaway for me from what you said, many takeaways, but the first and foremost is we are talking science, but I think there is a human element. You need to humanize technology to make it easily interpreted, to maybe gamify, may do something, and that is where bringing the patients early on at a design stage might be a good solution moving forward. Yeah. And also, quite strong. I have always felt that this whole trust deficit that comes because of pricing anomalies or affordability, the gap between affordability and the technology is fundamentally not a technology problem, nor it is a medical problem. It's a reimbursement problem. If even with me, I would not like to pay for something that I'm not very happy paying for. Yeah. So great. So we would open up the session to some questions, and some questions that I can already see. Should industry?
Chair, we've got two there I've sent you. Thank you.
Yes. I see two questions. One is, should industry employ software graduates with diseases using health devices from IIT? Also from IIT. Yeah. So, yeah. Can anybody answer that for me? I have an opinion, but I'd not like to. Yeah, please go ahead. Dr. Sharma has joined us now. So how do we, Dr. Sharma, Gaurav and Sairika finished their presentation. Do you want to quickly run us through it?
He's in a car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just go ahead with the session. I will just join in with few comments. My flight got delayed, so I couldn't.
No problem. No problem.
Okay.
No problem. Okay, go ahead. So the question was that, Sairika, you nodded vehemently, and I'm addressing that question first to you.
I think that ties up very nicely to the piece where you said about involving patients at a design stage.
Yeah.
So I think this is a win-win, and this is also a huge piece in the inclusion that I normally campaign for in my day job, where this is exactly a classic case of inclusion, where you're having a set of people who are mainstreamed into something, and they bring in a classic value that typically somebody in that position would not, somebody else who's not in that position would not bring. So if you have a person living with diabetes, creating tech or designing tech, it would be something that really changes the game. And we've seen that I don't know if you know about all of these underground or garage initiatives that's happening with a bunch of diabetes technology. They do something called looping these days. It's not FDA approved, but it's really revolutionizing a lot of way pump users are, in a closed loop. And that's done by a garage band of, your IIT equivalents in America who are coding and, bringing it onto a platform. So these are classic examples of how people with a condition can actually push innovation, which is why I nodded vehemently.
That's fantastic. When point of pain is converted to point of passion, then magic can happen, actually, literally, So I'm sure, Gaurav, do you have a comment on that, Gaurav? Very quick comment, maybe.
So I completely agree with you and what Sai Rekha has said. If you have skill sets to develop the solution and the condition to understand the pain for which the solution is provided, then you can actually humanize the technology, as you have mentioned. So I'm all game for it.
And perhaps, not just limiting it to that. I think it is very important, immersion, right? Immersion is very important. I don't know. I work for a Japanese company. We call it Gemba. Gemba means immersion, touch, feel. When you touch and feel, then you feel the pain. Yeah. The second question that I have right now is health devices. Sarika's last point about small towns and so on and so forth. So it kind of ties up with it, saying that how important is health device dealership support for health devices upkeep, recalibration, so on and so forth. Yeah. Gaurav, can you take this question? Because, oftentimes, you are in a regulated environment, right? Who can offer the educational support or the engineering support or the clinical advice, is well regulated, and sometimes channel of people are realizing it today. When we talk about distributing COVID vaccine, you are seeing the challenge of distribution in a country like India, right? So how do you align distribution, commercial distribution or supply chain distribution with, information distribution or patient support distribution?
So, what I firmly believe is for any technology to be successful, the last mile connectivity is very, very critical. And these distributors, channel partners, or dealers play a very important part in ensuring that last mile connectivity. As an organization, what I can tell you is we are heavily involved in the education. It's not only the commercial relationship what we have, supplying the product and getting the payments and selling the products. We are heavily involved in their education as well, as so that actually they are not selling the product. They are actually, helping in providing the solution. So again, as rightly asked, that they play a very important role in ensuring that the product is rightly used. More often or not, as a regulatory person, what we have seen, a complaint is nothing but the wrong usage of product, wherein the person has not gone through the instructions for use fully and have used the product, and again resulted in a event, I would say, not a complaint, but again, and these dealers play a very important role in informing and educating the end user how to use the product properly and differentiate between a complaint and what I would say adverse event. And education of these dealers and channel partners hence is very, very important. And it's the responsibility of the organization who's putting the product in the market to ensure that the channel partner is properly informed and educated about the product.
Fantastic. Thank you. There are no further questions, but I just wanted, because Dr. Sharma dropped off again.
I think better wrap up. I think we will
so
wrap up. That'd be good. Yeah.
With that, I think time to sort of bring it to a close. Very good hearing your comments, both of you. And I was just wondering if there is merit in enabling patients more from a medtech standpoint, yes, there are educators, but if there is a support community, right? If you look at, not that I'm trying to advocate that, but you see multi-level marketing, the Amways of the world, where the user is the biggest propagator. And because they use, in Sairika's case, she knows how scared she was of the graphs. So when another person talks to her, maybe her way of coding and solutioning for it is going to be far better. Till such time technology is able to take it forward. Yeah.
Okay.
So with that, we will bring this session to a close. I am very thankful to both the speakers and for the organizers again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhudas. I think we'll continue this dialogue. I think we have lots of other things planned during 2021, and I will invite you guys because health devices will be playing a big role in our overall approach.
Yeah, and Sairika, I'll connect with you separately because
okay. Thank you, everybody.
I look forward
Thank
to
you.
it. I look forward.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me here, Mr. Sevni, Mr. Verma, Mr. Das.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Gaurav.